Well, good morning, everybody, or afternoon. It's noon. Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Dean. I'm the president and CEO of Tennessee Nonprofit Network. We're really excited you're here for our member meeting today. We have a great partner of ours, Think Tennessee, that is here. That's going to tell us more about their new dashboard. So what we're going to do is, if you can put your name and your organization and where you're from, if you're just joining us in the chat, we'd love to know who's in the room. And then we will have questions at the end. Dorian and Kate on our staff are going to be monitoring the chat to see what questions there are after we're done. So when we're done with the presentation, we'll turn it over to y'all to ask questions. If y'all can please stay on mute, just because the background noise is always a pain when you're trying to give a presentation. Also, we will be sending out the slides and the recording after this. It might be a few days. We have a couple of our staff members who are out this week, but we will get that to you as quickly as possible. So you will have that. We also have a YouTube channel where you can see all of our member meetings online, and other things. If you missed the grant opportunities for the Tennessee Department of Human Services yesterday, that is now on YouTube as well. So just find Tennessee Nonprofit Network on there, and you can see all of the old member meetings with lots of great information on there like this. I'm going to turn over to Think Tennessee now. I'm going to turn over to their CEO, Aaron, who I'm going to let you introduce all your staff, and you can take it away from there.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kevin, so much. Hi, everyone. We are so thrilled to be here. As Kevin said, my name is Erin Hafkenscheel, and I'm president of Think Tennessee. We are a statewide public policy think tank. We're based in Nashville, but we do work all across the state. And I will tell you a little bit more about our background. But before that, I've got 3 members of my team here on the call, and so would love for them to quickly introduce themselves. Matthew, do you want to go ahead and start? Oh, he's working on the slides. There we
Sorry,
go.
Hi everyone. My name is Matthew Kinney. I'm a policy associate at Think Tennessee that works on issues of transportation, housing, and childcare.
And then Amy.
Good afternoon. My name is Amy Gore, and I am the Policy and Research Director at Think Tennessee.
And then Mary, I saw you too. You want to say hi real quick?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Darby. I'm the External Relations Director with Think Tennessee.
Great. Awesome. So we are a mighty team of 8 right now, and we actually are in the process of hiring some new folks. So we will be a mighty team of 10 in just a few weeks. But we're so thrilled to do this work in the state of Tennessee and really excited to be with you today. I would say fundamentally, as an organization, we believe that if people have access to good information and good data, high quality research, that really helps lead us towards better public policy solutions, and in turn leads to a state where all Tennesseans can be civically engaged and economically secure. But we don't want to be an organization that puts out research and reports that just sit on a shelf and that no one uses. And so we've spent a lot of time over the last couple of years in particular really trying to get out across the state, meet new folks, meet new partners, so that our research products are better informed by the needs of our communities. And also so we have partners that we can share our work with. And then, of course, partners that we can work with to take good ideas and turn them into policy wins. One of our core research products that we've done since our organization's founding is our State of the State dashboard. Some of you may be familiar with that. We rank Tennessee against peer states on 120 indicators. And while that is a great way to sort of see how Tennessee is doing as a state, we've often heard a lot of feedback from folks that more local data is really important and really needed. So we really listened to that, and that's why we're so excited to share our brand new research product, which is our State of Our Counties dashboard. And by the end of our discussion today, we hope to sort of share with you what that means, what that entails, and empower you to sort of use this tool to better understand the complex needs and opportunities in Tennessee's communities. our hope is that we use rankings to really sort of contextualize the data so people have a sense of how the counties are doing. They are absolutely not meant to sort of pit counties against each other, but rather show where there's strengths and weaknesses and encourage counties and communities to really work together and facilitate new connections to learn best practices from each other and learn where they can work together to work on areas where that may need improvement. So we really hope the dashboard is meant to connect local leaders and advocates. And we look forward to hearing from you about this. This is the first time we've ever done this. So we absolutely would love your thoughts and feedback because we're always working to improve our research products. So our presentation today, what we're going to focus on is a brief overview of sort of Think Tennessee's work, our mission, and what we do as an organization. And then we'll walk you through the county dashboard. Like I said before, our goal is to sort of introduce you to the tool. It is both an interactive web page where you can see the map of Tennessee and all 95 counties. And then we also have PDFs, county overviews, as well as a PDF that provides all the metrics for one county, so all 104 indicators. And so just really letting you know about how to access that data and how to be able to use that. We won't go over all 9,500 pieces of data, I promise that. But really just to sort of give you a highlight and overview so you know how to use it when you need it. We will also share sort of a summary of our key findings after our initial review of the county level data. And then, of course, as Kevin said, we really want to save quite a bit of time for questions and answers. So please feel free to add your questions in the chat box as we go along. And we are excited to hear your feedback. And like Kevin said as well, we're happy to share the slide deck following the webinar. Before we dig into the data, I want to just talk a little bit about Think Tennessee. I mentioned some of this already, but as I said, we're a nonpartisan, results-oriented think tank that uses research, engagement, and advocacy to build a state where all Tennesseans are civically engaged and economically secure. We work in partnership with state and local leaders, and we drive evidence-based policies that strengthen the voice of voters and better support working families to move Tennessee forward. We launched in 2017, so we're still relatively new. We're in our 7th year, and we started with just one full-time staff, and as I mentioned, we're just about to bring on our 10th person. This growth has allowed us to expand our issue areas and also be able to get out across the state and meet local leaders so that we ensure that our work is better connected to work that's happening on the ground. And just the last thing I would say before I turn it over to Amy is that we're constantly trying to figure out how to make our data and information more actionable and more relevant to partners. So that's why we're so excited to be here today to hear from all of you. So without further ado, I'm super excited to introduce, turn it over to Amy Gore. Amy is our policy and research director, and she oversaw the state of our county's dashboard, putting it together, all 9,500 data points. So with that, I will turn it over to Amy.
Thank you so much, Erin. For those of you who don't know, Think Tennessee focuses on 2 program areas. First is strengthening democracy, and that includes issues of good governance, voting access, as well as supporting judicial independence and fair redistricting. Second, our Supporting Working Families program focuses on access to good jobs, which includes supporting jobs with good wages and benefits, as well as workforce development, so that Tennessee residents have the ability to get those jobs. We also work on the accessibility and affordability of basic needs like housing, transportation, childcare, and utilities, as well as debt. And we are particularly interested in debt that is caused by court fines and fees. Each year, we work with partner organizations, our board, and others to develop a list of policy priorities. You may have received last year a survey to help us develop these policy priorities. You might receive a survey this year to help us develop our policy priorities. And I really hope that you'll take a few minutes out of your busy schedules to help us formulate these priorities for the next year. So in 2024, we are focusing on improving the voting rights restoration process, eliminating restrictions on absentee ballot sharing, absentee ballot application sharing, and supporting voter education. In addition, we are promoting increased access to affordable housing and transit, as well as improving good jobs with fair wages and benefits, particularly paid leave. Next slide, please. If you haven't had a chance yet to look at some of our recent work, be sure to check out our website. We've recently released the State of Our State Transportation Report, a 2022 Election After Action Report, policy briefs on debt in Tennessee, as well as voting rights restoration. 2 weeks ago, we released a new voter education series that gives information about how to vote. That is nonpartisan and also applicable across all 95 counties in Tennessee. Soon we'll be releasing our State of Working Tennessee report, as well as our general session after action report. All of these reports can be found at thinktennessee.org under research, or if you sign up for our newsletter, you will be sure to find all of those resources for you. So today, we are really excited to introduce you to the State of Our County's dashboard. As Aaron mentioned, Think Tennessee has been producing the State of Our State dashboard for several years. It shows how Tennessee overall is performing compared to other states on a wide range of topics, including education, transportation, and civic engagement. This year, for the first time, Think Tennessee is releasing a new county-level dashboard. As we mentioned, it includes over 100 indicators for all 95 counties. The goal of the county dashboard is to draw attention to areas where statewide data obscures local needs and opportunities. Like our statewide dashboard, it includes data and rankings on several topics. We want this to be an easy to use one-stop source for local data for the general public, our partner organizations and community advocates, as well as elected leaders. We think that providing this data at the local level can help bring attention to both local and regional issues and highlight shared challenges and opportunities. And with that, I will turn it over to Matthew Kinney, who is our policy associate and led on the development of the dashboard. He is going to walk through how to use the dashboard and some of our key findings.
As you can see in this picture that we have captured here, this is a snapshot of our dashboard website. We want to take a moment to walk through some of its features with you and explaining its various purposes and tools. When you first interact with the dashboard, you'll want to first select the category and metric to display on the left-hand side. Respective categories, with 9 categories from children, health, housing, economy, elections, and civic life, education, infrastructure, mobility, and more. There really are lots of options to choose from, but for the sake of this session, we've selected economy category and the unemployment metric. We've also included an option to attach labels for all 95 counties, which you can enable or disable here. In the top left corner of the map window, you can see the metric title, as well as the definition and source of the metric. When you click on any given county in the map window, a pop-up box will appear. In it, you will see the county name, the value for that metric, the county's rank, and the average Tennessee county value. In this instance, we can see that Sevier County has an with percentages. You can see a number bounded by parentheses that tells you the estimated number of individuals in that population. So Sevier County has an estimated unemployed population of 1,734 people. This puts Sevier County at 19th relative to all other counties in Tennessee, which have an average unemployment rate of 3.7%, meaning that Sevier County has an unemployment rate below the average. As a word of advice, be sure to click on the county you want carefully. If you are too far zoomed out, or too close to the county border, you may select a neighboring county instead of the one you intended, but not realize it. In the top right portion of the map, you'll see a compare stats option. By enabling the comparison tool at the top of the window, you can compare metrics across categories through scatterplot. When you enable this feature and select your comparison metrics, both data values will be displayed when you click on a single county pop-up window. The comparison metrics definition and the source is displayed in the compare stats window as well. As a word of caution, while this tool does allow you to compare 2 metrics, it in no way guarantees a statistical significance in correlation or causation. In the bottom left side of the window, you'll see 3 buttons which all offer alternative ways of viewing the data. the All Counties button, summary button at the top, which summarizes the metric that you are currently looking at, and two other options which are specific to individual counties below. The first button, the All Counties Summary, provides a PDF summary of all 95 counties specific to the metric that you have selected. It's the equivalent of printing all 95 counties as individual pop-up boxes for one metric into a convenient PDF. The All Metrics button on the lower portion of the window will provide information for all 104 metrics for a single county in a single PDF. And then the county overview will provide a snapshot of key rankings and indicators from various categories and metrics through the lens of Think Tennessee's policy priorities of strengthening democracy and supporting working families, which can help to serve as a useful overall tool to review some of the important issues. Now that we've walked through some of the features of the dashboard, I'd like to quickly go through some of the key findings. Obviously, there's still loads of data and tools for you and your communities to sift through, but these are just some quick highlights. As a reminder, ranking first, we've standardized the rankings such that ranking first will always be an indicator of positive performance, and 95th will always be an indicator of poorer performance with room for improvement. The common refrain is that the state of Tennessee's growth is strong, and this is mostly true at the average county level. Between 2021 and 2022, the average county experienced a 1.2% increase in population, with Wilson County at 4.3% being the highest and Lake County being the lowest. This is generally higher in Middle Tennessee than in other parts of the state. When we look at GDP growth, the average county experienced a 3.6% increase, with Ray County actually being the highest at 28% and Lauderdale being the lowest at -9.5%. East and Middle Tennessee counties were typically above average in GDP growth, while West Tennessee was rather below average. And the average county experienced a 4% increase in employment between 2021 and 2022. But if we take a moment and look at that over a longer term period, this growth has not been evenly distributed throughout the state, as you can see on the left-hand side. Between 2010 and 2022, West Tennessee averaged 8.9% in employment growth, compared with 26.3% in Middle Tennessee and 18% in East Tennessee. In this long-term period, Wilson County also experienced some of the greatest long-term employment growth, an estimated 76.8% increase, followed by Williamson at 75.1% and Moore at 60.9% increase. Lake County, however, had the lowest in employment growth, a negative rate of 12.4% in long-term. In spite of both the short-term and long-term growth in jobs, GDP, and population, these increases have unfortunately not been enough to support the working families of Tennessee. The median household income for the average county is an estimated $51,734, with Middle Tennessee being above average and East and West Tennessee being slightly below average. When compared with the cost of living, however, in almost all counties, the average wages and salaries and/or median household income is anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 short of the average cost of living, which stands at $69,367. There are lots of different ways that cost burden is measured and assessed, and we've included many of those in the dashboard, but we can use those to begin to understand why the cost of living is so high. In housing, for example, in the average county, 24% of residents spend 30% or more of their income on housing-related expenditures. That's almost 1 in 4, excuse me. And this is particularly acute in urban counties, which trend nearly 7% higher at 31% or 3 in 10. 24% of a household's income is needed to afford the cost of childcare for 2 children. This is a generally persistent figure across counties, but can vary drastically depending on the county. Lows include a 12% in Williamson County and 18% in Wilson, but be at or exceeding 30% of household income for 2-child childcare in Lake, Hancock, Clay, and Sullivan counties. The pie wheel to the left shows a breakdown of cost burdens across a variety of expenses based on data from the Economic Policy Institute. Other considerations that influence the cost of living include transportation and healthcare. The economic outcomes vary significantly among counties. The poverty rate averaged 16% among all counties, but tended to be slightly higher in rural areas. Counties with poverty rates exceeding 20% or with 1 in 5 people living in poverty included 13 counties. Middle Tennessee has typically lower levels of debt in collections at 31% compared to the overall average of 34%. This average is also typically lower in urban counties and higher in rural non-metro areas. In the average county, 20.2% of people are likely to have medical debt in collections, 29.3% are likely to have some form of auto debt, and 11.3% are likely to have some form of student debt. 15% of households in the average Tennessee county receive food stamps. If you look and takes just a moment to look at some of the demographics we've included in the dashboard on the right-hand side of the screen, child poverty is far higher, and we'd like to take a moment and explore some of the outcomes for children included in the dashboard. If we look at a map from the dashboard, we can see Middle Tennessee has lower child poverty rates, averaging 19%, compared to East and West Tennessee's average of 24%. Hancock County had the highest child poverty rate at 43.2%, and Moore County had the lowest at 3%. In the average county, more than 1 in 5 children live, or 22%, live in households below the poverty line. That's 5% higher than any other demographic. Broadening our analysis, we can see that 25.1% of children live in households headed by a single parent. This is on average 5% higher in West Tennessee than in East and Middle Tennessee. 43% of youth are considered overweight or obese, and 14% of children live in households that have experienced an uncertainty of having enough food sometime in the past 12 months because of insufficient money or other resources. In the average county, 23.9% or 24% of households with children rely on food stamps, which is the second highest demographic after considering households in poverty. 30% of children in the average county live in households receiving public assistance, and this jumps up 7% to 37% in rural non-urban counties. If we turn to some of the older ages of children, high school graduation rates are 87% in the average county, but are lower for economically disadvantaged students and students with disabilities, averaging 80% and 40% respectively. In the average county, 26.5% of people, or just over a quarter of people 25 and up, have obtained an associate's degree or higher in terms of educational attainment. If we turn also to look at some of the elections and civic life indicators, we find some mixed results. Voter registration rate averaged 85% for the average Tennessee county in 2022, but this was slightly higher in Middle Tennessee at 88% and lower in West Tennessee at 80%. But the turnout numbers did vary drastically. We all know that turnout rates are far higher in presidential election years than in midterms, but a turnout gap between the 69% in 2020 and the 39% in 2022, or a third of all voters, is a rather significant gap. In 2022, voters were relatively even in terms of how they chose to cast their votes. 54% of voters in the average county voted in person on election day, and this was typically greater in rural non-urban counties. 44% of voters chose to cast votes early through early voting processes, and this was much higher in urban counties. If we look at a map from the dashboard, we can also see that 2022 voter turnout has lots of subtleties in geography, with no clear region taking the lead in terms of greater or lesser voter turnout. Hancock County had the lowest voter turnout at 29.3%, and Loudoun County had the highest at 48.4%. Montgomery County, where Clarksville is, stands as having the lowest turnout rates among high population counties at 29.8% in 2022, with Williamson and Wilson having higher rates of about 44 to 45% each. There are lots of other metrics and other categories that we did not discuss, and we hope you take the time to explore the dashboard and better understand some of the key insights for your communities. At this point, I'll turn it back over to Erin and for the question and answer session.
Thank you, Matthew, so much. So as Matthew said, that is just sort of the tip of the iceberg. The dashboard is really meant to be sort of an interactive resource that partners and organizations are able to come back to when they're looking for particular pieces of information. And we did our best to sort of pull out some of the key takeaways that we see from the data, but I just strongly encourage you to go and check it out for your county, because that's where you can really get some interesting and key takeaways. So Dorian, we're happy to answer some questions.
Yes, and so please, if you do have any questions, please feel free to come off mute and ask your question, or you can drop them in the chat and I'll feel free to lift your question up to the group.
One of the things, while people are thinking of questions, we were in Hamilton County yesterday, and we're giving a preview to some of the folks in Chattanooga. And I think one of the things that has been interesting to us, again, the way Matthew presented the data was we were trying to sort of find key takeaways by region or sort of statewide. And I think one of the things that's been surprising to us is there absolutely are a handful of the indicators where there are sort of these clear regional themes. But for the most part, there's quite a few indicators where that's not the case. I think one of the ones Matthew shared was around voter turnout. And it's really surprising when you see sort of two counties that are adjacent to each other that have pretty drastically different indicators. And so again, our hope is that that helps get people asking questions and trying to figure out sort of why that's different and how those adjacent neighboring counties can really learn from each other.
Yes, and I just want to answer one question that was posed and put in the chat. We will send the links and the presentation out in a follow-up email for everyone who's attending this session currently. And so we will send this information out as well. And then also Amy also dropped the link to Think Tennessee's State of Our Counties in the chat with that question as well. So we'll also include that in that follow-up email. We also have a second question. Can you talk about some of the indicators you look for at workforce development?
Yeah, Matthew, do you want to take that, or Amy, take that question?
I can talk about that. I think for workforce development in the economic indicators, some of the things that we are looking at are things like job growth, employment, unemployment, any type of unemployment rates that we can get broken down or disaggregated, as well as then looking at some of the educational attainment and other sort of elements of skills building. We also like to look at issues of transportation and commute time and how many people are working in their county. I think sometimes when people have to travel quite far for work, there might be opportunities for them to skill up in areas in jobs that are more available close to them. So those are a few of the indicators that we look at when we are doing our workforce development work.
I'll also just point out that all those indicators that Amy just mentioned are in the dashboard, so you can go and find those indicators for your county and for some of your neighboring counties.
Okay, and we also have another question. What are a few collaborative ways Think Tennessee hopes this dashboard will be used by nonprofits?
I mean, our hope is that there's sort of endless ideas in which organizations can use this. Again, we just came from Hamilton County, and so one of the ones that we're talking about there is that Mayor Kelly and a number of the nonprofits working in Hamilton County are thinking about sort of the vision for Chattanooga and what some of the sort of long-term goals are. And the county dashboard data could be used as sort of key performance metrics and indicators that sort of help a county or a city sort of track their progress over time, which is really exciting to hear that a county finds this data useful to be able to do that. But I think that there's, what we also gave a presentation this week in Bradley County and McMinn County, which are sort of the two counties just to the east of Hamilton County. And one of the things that came up is that Bradley County is actually, again, those are two adjacent counties. Bradley County has much higher employment growth than McMinn, but McMinn has a much higher population growth than Bradley County. And we were presenting at the Bradley County Chamber of Commerce, and he was saying, well, it's been much harder for us to build housing in Bradley County, and so a lot of people are moving to the region to take the jobs in Bradley County, but are having to live in McMinn County because of affordability. So it really helps counties sort of identify some of those issues. And then, once people can agree on the data, then they can start talking about sort of solutions to those problems and issues.
And then we also have another question. Specifically talking about different categories, for example, transportation, trying to figure out who drives, who does not drive. And so the question is, will there be continued updates in the dashboard as it pertains to examples such as transportation?
I can take that. So I think that, so currently in terms of updating the dashboard, the data that exists in the dashboard, right now we update our dashboards on a annual basis, and we do the state of our state dashboard 1 year, and we do our county dashboard on the off year. And Aaron mentioned we are hiring some new people, and one of our positions that we are hiring is a new data analyst. And our goal with that position is that we will update the both the state and the county dashboards on an ongoing basis. So anytime that there is new information on one of our categories, that we will update that almost automatically, so that it's always the most up-to-date data based on the sources that we have. In terms of additional metrics, I think, for example, the public transportation, there definitely is data out there about the number of cars available to households or to workers, and that is something that I don't think is included in this iteration, but is something that we could include. And I think that's a great suggestion, and that's exactly the type of feedback that we are looking for from everyone, of what are the data points or topic areas or issues that would be helpful to you in your work. And if you can let us know, we will do our best to add that in and really increase the functionality and usability of this for all of our partner organizations.
And I don't see any other questions in the chat, but also please feel free to come off mute and ask your question, or also you can drop them in the chat and we will get those lifted for you.
While we're waiting for a few more people to chime in with questions, I'll add on to a little bit of what Amy said too. Christine, while we don't have sort of the commute mode share information in this version, there are quite a few indicators that are related to infrastructure and mobility. We do include average commute to work, the residents that are commuting to work outside of their county of residence, which is always interesting from a sort of regional perspective. We include information on crash rates, both fatal crash rates and injury crash rates. And then one that is sometimes overlooked is the rate of auto loan I think it's deficient or delinquent auto loans. And this is an area where we rank pretty poorly as a state. We're 48th as a state for auto loan delinquency, and that oftentimes gets categorized in sort of our debt categories, but it really is a indicator of the low quality of our transportation system and the lack of options. And again, like I said, you can go and see sort of where your county falls from that perspective. But it's because we rank so low as a state, it's pretty fair to say that most counties are also not doing very well. And it really just shows that people are being forced to drive even if they can't afford to drive, and so can't afford their car loan. So there definitely are a few indicators in there now that can help make the case for more investments in public transportation.
I'd also take a moment and say that we recognize that like this is a lot of data to work with, and it's very much kind of oriented towards the problem identification side of policy change. And I think one of the things that we're thinking about is how can we take this data and turn it around into to inform, like it informs problem identification, but it doesn't always inform policy solutions. You know, if there's a high ratio of primary care providers to patients, like that's typically a poor indicator, but how do we actually get those primary care physicians into the community to help like service, provide those healthcare needs and improve healthcare access? That's something that we're thinking about as terms of like, how can we turn the problems that we've identified in the dashboard into a policy solution framework that could work for multiple counties and for multiple different communities.
So I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat. But also I do want to thank Think Tennessee for coming on with us for our member check-in information session. So again, we will send the recording as well as the slide deck out as well. And so at any point in time that you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us at TNN. And I also, if it's okay with Amy, Aaron, and Matthew, I'll add their emails into the follow-up email as well, so you can send any other questions to them. In the meantime, oh, sorry. We have one more question, or maybe that's just a copy and pasted question. But again, I want to thank you all for hopping on with us for our member check-in. Again, if you do have any questions, please reach out to us and we'll be sure to get those questions answered for you. And so, as my colleague will always say, we'll give you back the gift of time. Again, thank you all for hopping on with us today, and hope you have a great rest of your day.